Two teenage girls set out for a simple afternoon hike on February 13, 2017. Only one of them would have the presence of mind to capture their killer on video before they both died. That recording would become the key piece of evidence in one of America's most haunting murder cases. 14-year-old Liberty German pressed record on her smartphone as a stranger approached her, and 13-year-old Abigail Williams on an abandoned railway bridge in rural Indiana. She couldn't have known that her quick thinking would create the most chilling piece of evidence investigators had ever encountered. Grainy footage of a man walking toward them, followed by his voice commanding them to go down the hill. Before we dive into this case, make sure to like this video and subscribe. This is a story that will stay with you long after it ends. What began as a routine day off from school became a nightmare that would grip the nation for over 5 years. The case of the Delphi Murders shows us how technology can preserve crucial evidence even in our darkest moments, and how one teenager's courage in the face of unimaginable terror would ultimately bring her killer to justice. This is the story of how Liberty German became a hero, even as she became a victim. Monday, February 13, 2017, was supposed to be a perfect day for two best friends in Delphi, Indiana. Schools were closed for a teacher's workday, giving 13-year-old Abigail Joyce Williams and 14-year-old Liberty Roselyn German a rare opportunity to spend time together outdoors. The girls, known to friends and family as Abby and Libby, had been looking forward to hiking the Monon High Bridge Trail, part of the historic Delphi trail system that wound through the peaceful woodland of Deer Creek Township. Abby Williams was a spirited 8th grader who loved art and spending time with her family. Born on June 23, 2003, she was known for her infectious smile and creative spirit. Her best friend, Liberty German, born December 27, 2002, was a month into her 14th year and already showing signs of the strong, independent woman she was becoming. Libby was tech-savvy, athletic, and fiercely loyal to those she loved. The two girls had been close friends for years, sharing the typical interests of teenage girls but also possessing an adventurous spirit that drew them to explore the natural beauty around their small Indiana town. At 1:30 p.m., Libby's older sister Kelsey drove the girls to the trailhead on County Road 300 North, east of the Hoosier Heartland Highway. It was a familiar spot. The Monon High Bridge was a popular destination for locals and visitors alike, offering scenic views and a connection to the area's railroad history. The abandoned railway bridge stretched high above Deer Creek, creating a dramatic backdrop for photos and a sense of adventure for those brave enough to walk across its weathered timbers. The plan was simple. The girls would hike the trail, explore the bridge, and meet Libby's father at 3:15 p.m. for pickup. It was the kind of wholesome afternoon activity that parents in small-town America rarely worry about. Delphi, with a population of fewer than 3,000 people, was the kind of place where children could still roam freely, where neighbors knew each other, and where violent crime was virtually unheard of. At 2:07 p.m., Libby posted what would become a haunting final social media update. A photo of Abby walking across the old railway bridge, her figure silhouetted against the winter sky. The image captured a moment of innocent joy, two friends enjoying their freedom on a beautiful February afternoon. After this post, the girls vanished into silence. When 3:15 p.m. came and went without the girls appearing at the designated pickup location, concern began to mount. Libby was known for being responsible and punctual. It wasn't like her to lose track of time or ignore plans. Her father waited, checking his phone repeatedly, assuming they had simply lost track of time exploring the trails. By 5:30 p.m., worry had transformed into genuine alarm. The families began searching the trail system themselves, calling the girls' names and checking all their favorite spots. When their own search efforts proved fruitless, they contacted local law enforcement. What had started as a fun day off from school was rapidly becoming every parent's worst nightmare. The initial police response to the missing girls' report was measured but thorough. Carroll County authorities began an immediate search of the trail system. initially treating the case as two teenagers who had perhaps gotten lost in the woods or suffered an accident on the challenging terrain around the old railway bridge. The Monon High Bridge area, while popular with hikers, contained steep embankments, dense woods, and the creek below, all potential hazards for young hikers. Search teams worked through the night of February 13th using flashlights and calling the girls' names. Volunteers from the community joined law enforcement officers, forming search parties that combed through the woodland areas surrounding the trail. The searchers held on to hope that Abby and Libby had simply gotten disoriented or injured and were waiting to be found somewhere in the dense Indiana forest. That hope was shattered the next morning. Around noon on February 14th, Valentine's Day, searchers discovered the bodies of both girls on the north bank of Deer Creek, approximately half a mile east of the Monon High Bridge. The location was secluded, hidden from the main trail by trees and underbrush. What the searchers found immediately transformed the missing persons case into a double homicide investigation. The crime scene told a horrific story. Both girls had been murdered, though police initially withheld specific details about how they died to protect the integrity of the investigation. The Indiana State Police immediately took over the case, recognizing that the small Carroll County Sheriff's Department would need additional resources to handle what was clearly a complex and high-profile murder investigation. Within days, the investigation took an extraordinary turn. While processing evidence from the crime scene, investigators discovered that Libby's smartphone had survived and contained crucial evidence. The phone had been recording during the encounter with the killer, capturing both video and audio of the person responsible for the girls' deaths. On February 15, 2017, just 2 days after the bodies were discovered, Indiana State Police released the first piece of evidence that would define the case for years to come. A grainy still image extracted from Libby's phone showing a man walking on the Monon High Bridge. The photograph, though unclear due to distance and lighting conditions, showed a white male with his hands in his pockets, head down, walking along the bridge toward where the girls had been. The man in the photograph was immediately dubbed Bridge Guy by investigators and the media. His image was circulated widely, appearing on television screens, in newspapers, and across social media platforms throughout Indiana and beyond. The photograph represented both the investigators' best lead and their greatest frustration. They had a clear image of their suspect, but his face remained largely obscured, making identification nearly impossible. The community response was immediate and overwhelming, with tips pouring into the police tip line from across the country. The breakthrough that would define the Delphi Murders case came not from traditional investigative work, but from the remarkable courage and quick thinking of 14-year-old Liberty German in her final moments. What investigators discovered on her smartphone would provide them with evidence unlike anything they had encountered in a murder case before. On February 22, 2017, 9 days after the girls' bodies were found, Indiana State Police made an unprecedented announcement. During a packed press conference, investigators revealed that they had recovered audio from Libby's phone, the actual voice of the killer commanding his victims. The recording was brief but chilling. A man's voice, muffled but clearly audible, saying, "Down the hill." The audio clip lasted only a few seconds, but its impact was immeasurable. For the first time in the investigation, the public could hear the voice of the person who had murdered Abby and Libby. The recording was immediately broadcast across news networks, played repeatedly on radio stations, and shared millions of times on social media. Law enforcement officials credited Liberty German as a hero, praising her presence of mind and courage for secretly recording the encounter, even as she faced mortal danger. Police revealed that the audio and video evidence came from the same source. Libby had managed to start recording on her phone as the suspicious man approached them on the bridge. The video showed the man walking toward them, his gait distinctive, his clothing clearly visible despite the grainy quality of the footage. What made the evidence even more valuable was that it captured the killer in the actual moments leading up to the crime, providing investigators with unprecedented insight into his appearance, voice, and behavior. The technical analysis of the phone revealed that Libby had continued recording beyond what was initially released to the public. Police indicated that additional evidence had been secured from the device, but they refused to release further details to protect the integrity of any future prosecution. The implication was clear: there was more evidence on that phone, potentially including footage or audio from the actual crime scene. The revelation that the girl's own phone had captured their killer created a unique dynamic in the investigation. Unlike most murder cases where investigators must piece together evidence after the fact, they had real-time documentation of the crime as it unfolded. This evidence would prove both invaluable and frustrating. While it provided clear proof that the man in the video was responsible for the murders, it wasn't detailed enough to immediately identify him. The reward money for information leading to an arrest quickly grew to $41,000 as the case gained national attention. The combination of the video evidence and the audio recording made the case unlike any other in recent memory. Here was a killer whose face and voice had been preserved by his victim, yet he remained unidentified. Law enforcement officials emphasized that they believed additional evidence existed beyond what had been made public. The phone had captured more than just the brief video and audio clips released to the media, but investigators were carefully guarding those details. They knew that the killer was aware of what evidence might exist, and they wanted to maintain every possible advantage in their investigation. For over 5 years, the investigation into the Delphi murders seemed to stall despite the compelling evidence captured on Liberty German's phone. Police released a composite sketch in July 2017 based on eyewitness accounts, followed by a significantly different sketch in April 2019 as investigators announced a new direction in the case. The second sketch depicted a much younger-looking suspect, leading to confusion about whether they were looking for one person or multiple individuals. The April 2019 press conference brought renewed attention to the case. Police urged the public to focus on the mannerisms of the bridge guy in the video, studying how he walked and moved. They emphasized their belief that the killer was likely local to the Delphi area, either living there, working there, or having some other connection to the community. The suggestion that the murderer was hiding in plain sight sent chills through the small town, where residents began looking at neighbors and acquaintances with new suspicion. Despite massive public interest, thousands of tips and extensive media coverage on programs like Unsolved Mysteries and America's Most Wanted, the case remained unsolved. The investigation continued with dedicated task forces, but leads grew cold and public attention began to wane. The families of Abby and Libby never stopped advocating for justice, but as years passed, many began to wonder if the case would ever be solved. The breakthrough finally came in September 2022, but not through advanced forensic technology or a dramatic confession. Instead, it was discovered through a simple clerical error that had potentially allowed a killer to hide in plain sight for over 5 years. A volunteer file clerk reviewing old tips noticed that one had been incorrectly filed and marked as cleared due to a misspelling of the tipster's last name. The misfiled tip was explosive. It had been submitted by Richard Allen just 3 days after the murders in February 2017. In the tip, Allen had voluntarily reported that he had been on the Monon High Bridge Trail on February 13, 2017, the same day and time as the murders. He had told police he was there to watch fish and had seen 3 girls on the trail. Because his name had been misspelled in the filing system, this crucial self-report had been overlooked for years. When investigators finally followed up on Allen's tip in 2022, they discovered he was still living and working in Delphi. Richard Matthew Allen, born in September 1972, had grown up in nearby Mexico, Indiana, and had moved to Delphi in December 2006. He had worked at a local CVS pharmacy, had a wife and daughter, and was considered a respected member of the community. Most chillingly, he had been living and working in plain sight exactly as police had predicted. During questioning in October 2022, Allen's story began to unravel. He confirmed he had been on the trail that day, wearing jeans and a black or blue jacket, clothing that matched witness descriptions and the video evidence. When investigators compared a .40 caliber unspent bullet found at the crime scene with Allen's registered firearm, forensic analysis indicated it had been cycled through his gun. The investigation that had stumbled due to a filing error was finally back on track, and the man who had terrorized 2 families and an entire community for over 5 years was about to be held accountable. Richard Allen was arrested on October 26, 2022, and charged with 2 counts of murder in the deaths of Abigail Williams and Liberty German. His arrest sent shockwaves through Delphi, where he had lived and worked as a trusted pharmacy technician at the local CVS. Customers who had known him for years struggled to reconcile the helpful man who had filled their prescriptions with the monster who had committed such heinous crimes. The probable cause affidavit revealed the full scope of evidence against Allen. Beyond the ballistic evidence linking his gun to the crime scene, investigators had discovered that witnesses had seen a man matching Allen's description leaving the bridge area that day, appearing muddy and bloody. His own vehicle matched descriptions of a car that had been parked in a suspicious manner near the trail on February 13, 2017. Perhaps most damning was what happened after Allen's arrest. While incarcerated awaiting trial, Allen confessed to the murders more than 60 times to various people including his wife, mother, prison staff, and other inmates. These confessions were made in person, over the phone, and in writing, providing prosecutors with overwhelming evidence of his guilt. The trial began on October 18, 2024, in Delphi. During the proceedings, prosecutors revealed the horrific details that had been withheld for 7 years. Both girls had their throats cut. Williams was found fully clothed but wearing German's clothing, while German was discovered nude, suggesting a sexual motive for the crimes. The unspent .40 caliber bullet found between their bodies was forensically matched to Allen's gun through distinctive tool marks. Voice analysis experts testified that Allen's voice matched the "bridge guy" audio from Liberty German's phone. A state police master trooper who had listened to more than 700 of Allen's prison phone calls confirmed that the voice on the recording was indeed Allen's voice. The defense attempted to argue that Allen suffered from serious mental illness and that his confessions were the product of psychological breakdown while in solitary confinement. However, the jury was not persuaded by these arguments when weighed against the overwhelming physical and circumstantial evidence. On November 11, 2024, after deliberating for several days, the jury found Richard Allen guilty on all counts. On December 20, 2024, Judge Francis Gull sentenced him to 130 years in prison, 65 years each for the murders of Liberty German and Abigail Williams, to be served consecutively. The conviction brought a measure of justice to the families who had waited over 7 years for answers. While nothing could bring back Abby and Libby, their families could finally know that their killer would never hurt anyone else again. The community of Delphi could finally begin to heal from the trauma that had haunted them since that terrible February day in 2017. The Delphi Murders case stands as a testament to both the power of technology in modern criminal investigations and the devastating consequences of simple human error. Liberty German's decision to record her killer created evidence that was unprecedented in criminal cases, yet a misfiled tip nearly allowed that evidence to be meaningless for over 5 years. This case fundamentally changed how law enforcement approaches evidence from personal devices. Liberty's smartphone didn't just capture her killer. It became the cornerstone of the prosecution's case, proving that even in our most terrifying moments, technology can preserve truth. Her courage in those final moments turned her into a hero whose actions would ultimately bring justice not just for herself and Abby, but potentially prevented future crimes by removing a dangerous predator from society. The investigation's reliance on public engagement also demonstrated the power of community involvement in solving crimes. While thousands of tips created investigative challenges, they also kept the case in the public eye and ultimately led to the discovery of the filing error that broke the case open. The extensive media coverage, while sometimes criticized, ensured that Allen's face and voice remained familiar to potential witnesses. Perhaps most significantly, this case reminds us that killers often do hide in plain sight. Richard Allen wasn't a mysterious stranger. He was a pharmacy technician serving customers in the same community where he had committed murder. He had lived among the grieving families, the searchers, and the investigators for years, maintaining a facade of normalcy while carrying the secret of his horrific crimes. The legacy of Abby Williams and Liberty German extends far beyond their tragic deaths. The memorial park being built in their honor will serve future generations, while the Abby and Libby Memorial Library ensures their names will inspire young people for years to come. The orange lights that appeared on porches across Indiana have become a symbol of hope and remembrance. If this case moved you, please like this video and subscribe for more investigative stories. Share your thoughts in the comments below. How do you think Liberty's courage in recording her killer might influence how we teach young people about personal safety? Two friends went for a walk on a February afternoon. One of them made sure their killer could never escape justice.